Good people, the question I want to answer today is, do you really need a Razer hot swappable keyboard? When I first brought this up to both Eber and Michael, they were a little bit confused on like, hold on a second, why would you actually want a hot swap mainstream gaming keyboard? And the target audience for the new Blackwidow 75% are people who are enthusiasts who may potentially want to customize their keyboard, but also want some RGB bling, you know? It is Razer after all. All right, finally an orange switch, tactile and quiet. All right, I have this new keyboard. First impressions, these can...
Hold on. What is that? They're rebellious. They're fighting with my fingers. I don't know how to describe it. So I come from the Mode Sonnet keyboard, which I really like.
I really like the feeling of this. Sweet! I like just a little resistance.
We got a sweet and we got a rebellious. So I want to start with the positives. The RGB lighting on any Razer keyboard, especially this one, is absolutely gorgeous. The shine through via the ABS keycaps, they're not PBT, but the texture is still nice and coarse, so giving you nice grip without revealing the finger oils, and while still being ABS. And we like to say the PBT is like the king, but doing ABS properly is also a very good thing, and they've done a good thing here too. The side lighting looks awesome. It's not too bright, it's consistent, it's uniform. I love that the function key illuminates all your secondary functions, so you know what key does what. Outside of the traditional Razer Chroma RGB, the game integrations, especially with Diablo, is probably one of the best because it actually makes you feel connected to the keyboard and the game at the same time. It's a very unique and awesome feeling. Now the keyboard supports 8000 Hz polling, which right now, if we're looking at 1000 Hz and I start to type away, we don't really bump from the default around 20% CPU usage. We're still hovering around 21, 22. And even if I go to 8000 Hz polling rate, in terms of the usage, it doesn't jump up so much because it scans the keyboard 8000 times per second for input, but it doesn't really matter because the switches are not optical. You're talking about debounce delay. The switches are also tactile, so it makes no sense to have 8000 Hz in here. But what happens when we introduce another accessory that polls at 8000 Hz for the mouse right now? Right now, I'm moving, and we go from about 20% usage on the CPU. When I'm consistently moving to about 25, jumps to 28, but I'm also using this to screen record and audio record at the same time. So you can still see there's a pretty significant hit on our CPU usage when we move the mouse, but look what happens when I go to 8000 Hz polling and I start to move. We go above 30% on the CPU usage, like we're hovering in high 30s, like almost 40% just from our mouse movement. So that's something to keep in mind when you're combining 8000 Hz peripherals. Maybe not so the keyboard so much is important, but for mice, definitely. Okay, so move over slightly. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Okay, now rotate the motherboard. Rotate it, okay? For cooling or what? Yes, it's for thermal efficiency, okay? Ah, for centralized thermal efficiency, huh? That is right. Meet the new form factor to explore all types of cooling possibilities, especially for the GPU, with this unrestricted rear intake in a full tower designed to be roomy and easy to work in with full dust filtration, rear chamber to hide all your cables so you can let all the air in from all four sides. Check out the all-new Thermaltake CT options down below. I don't know why they do this, but the cable that's included with the keyboard does not fit my Razer Viper Mini for charging, and it's just like, why not make a cable that would be compatible with your other Razer peripherals? Especially because if they're targeting Razer fan base that would love to have uniformity across devices, why not think about the cable that is going to potentially maybe, you know, charge the mouse when you're not needing to use the keyboard? The magnetic wrist rest is always appreciated. It's not too soft. It gives you a little bit of support. For some reason, I don't get hot with this one by keeping my hands on top. It doesn't have the cooling capacity, but it doesn't make your hands super sweaty either. This pleather carbon fiber looking texture is pretty cool, but there is no other element on the keyboard that matches this, so the consistency in design uniformity is a little bit lost. The volume rocker is legit. It is super tactile and instantaneous. with volume adjustment. The keyboard unfortunately is not wireless, and this being Razer's first hot swap keyboard, I'm glad they're approaching it from like making sure there's foam in there, making sure the stabs are fine and everything is lubed and sounds good. So there has been attention on acoustics, but when we take a look at the Asus Azoth, for example, it's wireless, it's hot swappable. When we take a look at the Corsair K70 Mini, whatever, which is Corsair's first hot swap keyboard, that one is also wireless. When Logitech launched the G Pro X hot swap keyboard, that wasn't wireless, but it was much cheaper than the new Blackwidow. And so I really hope we will actually see a wireless 75%er. I think it's just a matter of time. But I will say it sounds way better versus the 65% Blackwidow, which sounds hollow, which sounds rattly, and they fixed all of that with this one. Now the hot swap nature. So first of all, it's a 5-pin switch designed with north-facing layout. The problem, however, is that Razer is really trying to push the Razer orange tactile switches that feel really nice by default, but that's the only switch that is available with the Blackwidow V4 75%. If you want to swap them out, you can purchase the greens or the yellow switches separately, which is a $25 expense for 30 switches, and this keyboard having 81, you'll need 3 packs of those, so you're looking at the minimum $75 investment on top of the keyboard price to swap out the switches. You know, if Razer really tried to target the enthusiast community, it would have been so great if this keyboard was offered as like the bare bones baseline with the keycaps included, and you can pop in your own switches and it would be slightly less expensive. But now it's a little bit like they're forcing you into buying the Razer orange tactile switches, which feel nice, but not everyone loves a tactile switch. And I love linears. I love Razer yellows too. And in order for me to swap them out, I would have to spend close to $300 on that configuration. And that's a little bit expensive, especially when we're talking about hot swap nature of everything that already exists on the market that is wireless, that sounds good as well, like the Azoth, for example. At $200 right now on sale, I would pick that keyboard any day over the new Blackwidow, just because the Azoth is wireless, it sounds awesome, it's kind of thocky, it brings some unique elements with that OLED screen versus the Blackwidow. I think they're trying to hit the acoustic side of things very well, but there's nothing particularly exciting about this keyboard. Everything is taken care of, you know, but it's not an incredibly like innovative product. They're just trying to catch up. I will say I really appreciate Razer's commitment to trying to target the enthusiast community, just because all you require are 6 screws to remove the base and to get access to all the internals. And why you might want to do that, because, you know, the tape mod is already applied. You can potentially remove the tape mod if you want to experiment with different thicker tape or whatever. You can remove any of the foams as well if you want to experiment with different thicknesses or different sounds inside this chassis. And that is probably the biggest advantage of this keyboard, and why it's probably slightly more expensive than the competition, just because accessing it and modding it is made so user-friendly. Also, it's because they have the FR4 gasket-mounted plate, which makes the typing experience really pleasant, not too squishy, not too hard, but something right in the middle. The stabs on this keyboard are absolutely decent. There is some inconsistency, so like the left side of the stab on the spacebar slightly more scratchy and more wiggly than the right side, but the rest of them feel really nice. And also it's a gasket mounted keyboard, so the typing experience isn't super harsh. There's a little softness, and the whole thing flexes just a tiny bit. I would say it's the right amount. They chose the FR4 plate on here. This is kind of weird, trying to remove the keycaps from our yellow switches. Removes the entire switch as well, but it doesn't do that with the tactiles. Yellow, tactile. What's going on? All right, something to take into account, I guess. So after trying the yellow switches, I will say I prefer the orange with this keyboard. So Razer made the right choice of going tactile because they're smoother, they're quieter, and just more pleasant and fit the whole acoustic implementation with this keyboard, with the sound mod, the tape mod, the gasket mount, all the foam, etc. I do love the box style switch on the green, the orange, and the yellow for that extra stability. And the orange tactiles are probably going to be my new favorite tactile switches, although I haven't tried them all, but I do prefer them over the yellows, which is a very big surprise. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think of the new Blackwidow 75%er. And this microphone is absolutely insane. There's so much echo in this room, which is why I'm recording with the gaming headset, because it eliminates it all without sounding like a gaming headset after all. All right, I'm Dmitry. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video.